Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the Your Forest podcast. I'm Matthew Christoph, and today, I've got a continuation of yesterday's. Well, I guess you guys don't know it's yesterday's, but the Women in Forestry podcast. This one is a continuation of it. I brought in Danielle Kjosness, and she is actually someone I graduated with from university. She's from a newer generation and has a bit of a different story to tell in relation to Bev. Really positive and really tells a good story, and I think you guys are going to like it. She is a provincial scaling officer for the government, so she also works for the government, same as Bev. She also went to tech school and then to university, same as Bev. So there's she can speak a lot to the comparing kind of her upbringing as well to Bev's. So hope you guys like it. And sponsors, same three as usual. We have Greenlink Forestry. We also have FRIA, the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta. And we have Damage Timber. Damage Timber is the apparel company they're an apparel company in Edmonton. And they're trying to give back to the environmental sciences community by giving 10% of what they get on the sale of their clothes back to the community in a scholarship. And they're going to be providing that in 2018, I think sometime in the fall. And this will be the first one. And they make lots of cool stuff. They have really cool hats. Their logo is a caribou hoof with silhouetted trees in it. And I really like their hats and their toques and their shirts, and they're getting sweaters. It's all really cool. Check them out at damagetimber.com. And if you put in Your Forest 10 at checkout, you get 10% off. Besides that, let's move on to the podcast. Here we go. I don't know. Let's just start off talking about, like, I'm surprised this never came up in school. Like, why did you get into forestry? What was attractive about it?
Well, I never really knew about forestry. I grew up on a farm just outside of Sherwood Park, and I really enjoyed it. I love being outside, and I don't know, my family's kind of traditional in the sense where boys go out and do the work and girls like stay in the house and do that kind of stuff. And I always wanted to prove to my grandpa and my dad that I could do it. And I was out there feeding cattle and whatever, driving tractors. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I took a year off after high school, and I worked for a survey company, and I was outside all the time, and I just loved being outside. Yeah. My dad was like, "You have to go to school." I'm like, okay.
My parents did the same thing, Nora, but
yeah. So I looking around on Nate's website, and I just happened to stumble across forestry, and I applied, got in, and
so you didn't even really know, like, did you know what it was?
No.
No? There's no idea.
I did a little bit of research, but it was like...
What did you think it was? Do you remember?
No. Not at all. Like,
probably
think I saw a person working outside and read something about the description, like your job description being outside mostly. And I'm like, sweet, I'm down.
Which is true when you first start.
Yeah. Now we're stuck in cubicles.
Yeah, inevitably you end up in the office, right? Well, that's where the decisions are made. So, but, oh, it's cool. So and you went to, when did you graduate from Nate? 2006 or something?
2008, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I believe so.
And then did you work after that, or did you go straight to university? I forget.
Well, my summers, I was at West Fraser in Chetwynd, and then I had to upgrade because...
Yeah.
Who does awesome in high school? Not me. So I had to upgrade, and then I went to university, and I didn't take any time off. I just worked in the summer, and that was it. I was a conservation officer for one summer, and that was not very fun.
Dealing with a lot of wasted people, probably. That's what I've heard from the people I talked to who have done that job. They said you spend most of your time just dealing with shitty people.
Yeah, that's
That's unfortunate. Every once in a while you get to, tag a bear or something, but
No, I didn't even get to do that. Like, it was just babysitting adults. Like, oh, did you pay your lot fees or whatever for camping here for the week? Or
that's unfortunate.
it's like, pay your $20. And yeah.
I guess it has to be done though. Someone's got to do it.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, some people like doing it. There must be some benefits to it. All the pictures I see look pretty awesome.
Probably for the full-time guys, but
right, I guess, yeah, your summer, yeah, so
yeah,
you're doing the grunt work. That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, so, but, and then after that, I got on with Canfor in Grand Prairie.
What were you doing there?
Silviculture.
Oh, okay.
Silviculture for, I've only ever done silviculture.
Yeah.
Did silviculture with West Fraser.
Yeah.
And then silviculture with Canfor.
Yeah.
And then
supervising the tree planters and herbicide and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Herbicide was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Checking the trees was whatever. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Got some bear encounters, but yeah, it was...
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah. Regen surveys were awesome too, because you're like all alone and you're just doing your work, right? Like,
and you're in the bush.
Yeah.
It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Rain is a thing, I guess.
There's a couple times I had to pour out my boots, but no big deal.
That's part of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we got to measure a couple PSPs too, just when...
Permanent sample plots, yeah.
Yeah, when the work was a little low or when we wanted a new experience or something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then what made you want to go to university?
Mostly my dad told me I had to.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, he was pretty persuasive. I guess I kind of had mentioned in passing that I might want to go into engineering or something. And he's like, yeah, you should do it. And then I was like, no. And he's like, yeah, you're going. I'm like,
Damn it. That's funny.
So it was a good experience though.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. I liked the university. I never went to Nate though, but that's definitely, I feel like that's the ultimate in understanding like forestry is like going to Nate and then learning how to do like that kind of stuff, and then going to university and learning the like economics and all that other kind of stuff about it. I think that those are the most well-rounded people I've come across for sure. So I think that was a pretty sweet path to go. But I just went straight to university because I don't know, that's just what I did.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I might have missed out by not doing that other thing first, right? But
yeah, I really enjoyed Nate. It was more hands-on, like you're always out in the field,
straight up doing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where university, it's like, here, write this paper, do this research.
Yeah.
Which was fine.
Thinking about stuff versus doing stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, they're just completely different. And
yeah, totally. You're learning about the same things technically, but you're learning different ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting into like being a woman in forestry and that, did you, like, I know yesterday when I was recording with Bev, she talked a lot about, she experienced a lot of discrimination for starting out. Like, she said she applied for 33 jobs.
Wow.
Before she got a call back, before she got a job. I don't like, and that was back in the 80s when it was like everybody was getting a job.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's amazing to hear. And like, I don't know, did you notice any kind of like, I mean, I'm sure there's some, but like just in school alone, did you think there was any kind of anything against you or anything like that? No? Not
in school. Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. That's
like,
good.
And just in the job in general, like a forestry job in general, no.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got the first job I applied for, like,
yeah.
Granted, it was in Chetwynd, BC, where not a whole lot of people want to go, but still, like, they're like, yeah, we'll have you back next year too.
Yeah.
Like,
what's the thing? You prove yourself, like, regardless of whatever, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of gender or race or whatever, it's all, you prove you can do the job. That's the thing about forestry. I think, it's just, it's really, I've personally, it's not even something, a topic that I even considered in the university or anything. I was like, no, like, men and women, like, I think Bev had a good point yesterday. Well, from like my perspective, like, my mom was a forester, so for me it was always a norm, I guess. Whereas, like, if you talk to Bev about it, like, she had a totally different experience, right? Like, it was hard for her. She was constantly proving herself above and beyond what her male counterparts had to do. And yeah, like it's not something I ever thought about until like recently, actually. Like when I just came across this topic, I'm like, yeah, I should definitely do that, because it was just,
Yeah.
But so like, what about in your jobs and stuff like that? Have you noticed that something similar? Like, do you think you had to like prove yourself more than male counterparts, or do you feel like it was pretty even?
Yeah, I think there's always a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Where I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It's not obvious. It's like really, you don't really know for sure, right?
Yeah, so you're always competing against, I don't know, men, because it's a male-dominated
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to tell. So you don't notice anything obvious. So that's awesome. That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's what we want. We want to make sure that it's. And I find that, like, I don't know. I was wondering about that. What do you think like the cross section is between, like, in forestry in general, with like between men and women? Like, it's definitely still more heavily weighted towards men, but I feel like the newer generations, like, they're like, when the NAIT class comes here, I feel like there's a lot closer to a 50-50 split.
Absolutely. I think
like school, like I saw a picture of the university grads this year, and I think it was mostly women. Like,
I was just talking to a coworker, and he said that there's mostly women at the U of A right now in forestry, and I was like, well, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like, it's not all field work where you have to be a big burly man and roll these logs or whatever anymore. So it's, I
wonder if there are any log drivers anymore, like down the river.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's still a job.
I've driven through BC, and you see like all these log piles in the river or the lakes, but
I think they just throw them in and let the current take them, though.
I think so. I don't know anything about that anymore.
I don't think it's profitable to have like a dude on a log rolling it down the river, right? Like, it's
like, safety first here, guys.
Yeah. OH&S would have a field day with that one. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's good. That's awesome to hear, because I know that was kind of my impression, was that there really isn't that. It's just kind of, can you do the job? Excellent. Like, it's a very intellectual job and requires you to be able, like Bev pointed out yesterday, was you really need to be able to think outside the box. And besides that, pretty much open to anybody. So, like,
I'm not saying it doesn't happen to other women my age or younger, but
in your experience,
in my experience, it really hasn't been, I don't know, too, I guess, prejudice against me or women.
Awesome.
So
that's good. So you got the first job that you applied for. You're on. So that's awesome. And and that's kind of what I expected. Like I said, it's just I being in school and talking about it. It's funny, Bev said something yesterday. She said about Jim Beck said, you've reached true equality when women in school are starting to get average grades. Because she was saying that, like, back when she was in school, all the women were like forcing themselves to like prove themselves to be like, to get the gold medal and to be top all the time, right? So what are your grades like? I'm just kidding.
Interesting way to look at it. Never really thought about that before.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like you said, we don't know for sure that there isn't that discrimination, but it's really like good to hear that we're like moving in the right direction, and that it doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. So that's huge. Yeah, that's awesome. Like, forestry for me, like I really think that it's something that's totally overlooked in society, right? Like, it's just, like, I started this podcast thinking about the fact that people don't really understand, like, when you tell somebody you're a forester, right, their head kind of tilts and they kind of go glossy-eyed.
Yeah, they're like,
they kind of lose interest
in tree hugger, or you cut down all of our trees.
Yeah, or you're a deforester, or like, you know what I mean? Like, people think that. They think that you're the bad guys from Avatar. I say that a lot, but I need to come up with a different metaphor. But
I think it's pretty good.
But I just feel like there needs to be a push to kind of get that information out there. I feel like us as foresters, we're pretty closed off, and we don't like to. I wouldn't say we're introverts, but like, I feel like we don't want the attention. You know what I mean? I feel like there's been a thought in the past that, like, if we just keep quiet and do our work, we know we're doing good work. We know we're like stewards of the land. We know that we're doing this right? Yeah. We know that we're not just like pillaging the landscape. We're taking care of it and making sure that it's going to be around for generations. But I feel like we've just decided that, like, if we just do that and we just, don't talk about it, everything will be fine, right? But I feel like we're getting to a point now with like social media and stuff like that we really, I think we really need to start speaking out and talking about that kind of stuff and explain like, no, this is what we do, this is not what we do. You need to understand that. And that was kind of the point of this podcast. But it's like, what do you see as some like misconceptions of forestry? Like, what are some things you come across?
Deforestation for sure.
Yeah.
Like, they all think that
yeah,
we deforest the land, and it's like, well, no, it's the cities that are growing and the land that we need for farmers that are actually deforesting our lands.
Urban sprawl and agriculture and mine sites and stuff like that. Yeah. That's a huge one.
Oh yeah,
I agree for sure. And like, especially people hear about it. I think a really big misconception that's like, it's not a Canadian misconception, but like down in South America, there's like, that's where most of the deforestation is going, apparently, right? And people assume that it's these money hungry people that are just cutting it down for profit. And it's like, apparently from what I've read, I can't back this up, but like from what I've read and talked about with people, it sounds like it's mostly like poor people that are trying to like feed their families and like trying to, you know what I mean? That's what I don't know if that's true or not, but if that's the case, then it's like, how can you blame them? Yeah. Right? Like, I'm pretty pro people. Like, I'd like for people not to starve to death. And if they can do that by harvesting trees, then you kind of gotta let them. But I feel like that's a societal problem, not really it's interesting though. But I think there's just an immediate misconception when people see deforestation. They just think, look, those evil sons of bitches. It's like, well, that's like, who's really evil like that? You know what I mean? Like, most people think they're doing the right thing, right? Yeah. Whether their perspective is misconstrued or kind of messed up is something we can argue. But like, yeah, I just think that there's a lot of misconception around forestry. I think it's like it's kind of our duty to start. Yeah, I agree. But I don't know. I follow this woodworking page on Facebook, and there was this massive, I think it was a sequoia. I can't remember exactly, but it was huge. It was like pre-Christ or really? Like thousands of years old. Yeah, and people are like all up in arms as to why it was cut down. They're just like assuming that people are cutting these trees down because profit or anything, right? And it's like, well, you don't know. Like, are you a forester? Are you a tree specialist? No. Like the tree kind of looks like it's been diseased in some way. So. Right. Did we know what happened to it? We don't know. I don't know what happened to it. But yeah, like you said, there's a good chance that it's 2,000 or 3,000 years old. Like, there's probably something wrong with it. It might have picked up a disease or two, or maybe it's got a giant crack because it's massive and heavy and wind exists. But yeah, you can't really fight like social media when people think they're like super knowledgeable about something they don't know anything about. No, that's a lost cause for sure. Oh yeah. Yeah. But I guess it is important for us to speak out and say, well, no, actually, this is the cause or this is the reason. And, but yeah, I don't know. I find it's pointless. Yeah. So. Yeah, well, on social media, for sure. Like, there's different forums, I think, in different ways of, I think it's like any kind of social change, right? Like, it just comes with like inundation and just like constant influx of information all the time. Yeah. To where your opinion is slowly and gradually shifted, right? Instead of being like, well, no, it's this. And everyone's like, oh, okay, but that doesn't happen, right? Like, people, it's like, no, they're sticking to their opinions until you can prove them wrong, basically, right? Which is fair. I think that's the way it kind of should be, and that's the way it is. But yeah, I think we just, as a whole, like, sector, we just need to be more vocal about, like, I know lots of hunters who spend, like, and guides and stuff that spend their life in the bush and think that, like, cut blocks are bad for elk and stuff, right? Or whatever, right? Like, they just think that, like, there's just misconceptions that they think that, like, the forest companies are out there for profit and not for anything else. And I don't know, like, for me personally, I got into it not for logging, right? Like, I didn't get into it because I wanted to, like, cut down trees and see that happen and stuff. I got into it because I spend most of my time in the bush, not so much anymore as an adult. But yeah, I got into it because I love the forest. I love the environment. I want to make sure that these things are around, and I did it for that reason. And I think, and as soon as you get into the forest industry, you realize that that's true of everybody,
Yeah.
Or at least I would argue most people anyways
Yeah.
are in it for that reason, right? And I just think it's hard to point that out to people, right? Like it's frustrating when people just immediately assume the worst. And I think it's so easy to do. So it's an interesting idea that we definitely have to start pushing forward with that kind of information. But
yeah, I agree. It's just hard.
Yeah. What do you do? People
also think that I know everything about like growing things.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, you're a forester, or you're really good with plants. Like, how do you grow this? And I'm like,
I get that a lot too, actually.
I don't know. Yeah. Read the instructions.
Yeah, like gardening and stuff like that. People are just like, oh yeah, like how do I grow this perennial or whatever? And I'm like, that has literally nothing to do with my education. Yeah. You're like, I understand, like, I know lots about soil, like forest soils, but when you ask me about garden soils, I'm like, that's just a conglomeration of as much nutrients as you can possibly get. Like, that doesn't occur in nature.
No.
Unless it's like in a cow patty pen, right? Like, it's just like
pretty much.
Yeah, I get that a lot too. But like I think most of the time people, when I tell them that I'm a forester, they immediately go like Ranger Gord from like the Red Green Show or something, right? They're like, oh, so you're like in a fire tower. I'm like, well, that's typically not even foresters that do that. Those are people who are trained in spotting fires, and they like their solitude and do that, right? And I think they think that, or they think you're a firefighter, which is something, that's a thing,
which is understandable,
a fire ranger, or just a logger. Yeah, and those are like the options, right? And it's not true. Like,
or a tree hugger,
a tree hugger. Yeah. So. You're one of those persons that like change yourself to a tree. And...
Yeah, I've had that so many times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never had that actually, but I could see it.
Yeah, and I'm like,
who are you hanging out with?
No,
I'm just kidding.
It's just random people who. Yeah.
And it's funny though. Like I say all this all the time, and like I remember Marty Lukert in school, forest policy. He was talking about. We had like all those presentations. I forget what we had to do them on. I think we were doing group presentations. I think we did ours together, maybe actually, in policy. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we were doing a presentation on like some issue about forest policy, and I think our conclusion was just like, we just got to educate the public. And he looks at us with a blank stare, and he's like, "Don't you think that's probably the solution for every societal problem we've ever had?" Notice how nobody's ever figured out how to do that? Yeah. Because people aren't interested. They don't want to learn, right?
They don't.
Unless it's their passion. Like, how do you go about teaching people that kind of stuff? Like, yeah.
I don't know.
You can even go to, like, forestry seminars and just have a bunch of foresters sitting there, and their eyes will glaze over in certain topics. So it's like...
Oh, yeah.
My eyes included.
Yeah. There's all the head bobbers or whatever.
Yeah.
Wake up.
No, it's I just think it's an interesting topic, but it's really good to know that you're not seeing that discrimination and stuff like that as like being a woman in forestry. That's awesome. That's huge. I guess if you had, I was going to ask you, like, if you had any advice for like women getting into forestry today, if you had anything you want to tell them, but it sounds like you never really came across a whole lot of problems, so that's a huge benefit.
Yeah. I'd just say don't be afraid to ask for something. Like, if you want to try, I don't know, harvesting or planning or any of that, if you're in silviculture or vice versa, like, get as much experience as you can in your university years or NATE years. And like, I just did silviculture the entire time, and there were the odd times where I did other jobs, but for the most part, it was all silviculture because that's what I knew and that's what I enjoyed. So
and if you like it, then that's perfect. But I know what you mean, though. I could see how there would be some situations where maybe, like talking to Bev, she says that like when she was getting into it, like, you really had to be like pig-headed and like stubborn to succeed and get through, right? Whereas like some of the people that got into forestry that were women that didn't last would be because they didn't have that personality type, right? Which is upsetting because they could have turned out to be amazing foresters that changed the way we think about things, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. You never know.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I could see how there's not like I wouldn't say that you're like a super stubborn person or anything like that. So I mean, it's I could see how it would be hard for people to kind of speak up when like they're being told to do something one way when you want to do or whatever, right? Like yeah, I can see how that would be a challenge, especially in like a male dominated industry. And like I would say that most foresters I know tend to be pretty like strong headed in that way. So
yeah, and I guess just don't be afraid to do something new.
Yeah, and ask or just do it and just speak up. I would say like big one probably just speak up in meetings and stuff, right? Like don't be afraid to speak your mind because
exactly. You might have an amazing idea no one else has thought of, or
exactly. I mean, I felt that. I feel that in meetings when I first started out, didn't feel confident in what I was saying, right? And
well, you're around these guys who've been in it for like 10, 15 years, and you're like, hey, it's my first year. I know everything.
Well,
just
I learned
kidding.
in school that it's like this. What do you guys think? And they just give you the blank stare like, kid, you got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're all there at one point.
Yeah. School is just the beginning.
Yeah. I loved university though. I really enjoyed it. Like it's funny, like some of my favorite classes were the ones with the least instruction. It forced you to kind of like throw you to the lions and just kind of let you figure it. Give you enough information that you can find what you need and figure it out. But like those were my favorite ones. I think it was interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that about myself until university, I think. But
yeah, I would agree. I really liked the which one with Kjosness?
A tree physiology.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
that one was. I don't know. It just
gotcha.
Yeah.
Tree physiology was so complicated. I had a hard time. I liked his both his classes, like tree phys and advanced tree physiology, but it was like I had a hard time wrapping my brain around some of the stuff. Advanced tree phys I really, really enjoyed, where we just like read papers and talked about it and discussed it. Like that was awesome.
Yeah.
Those are actually, and there was advanced silviculture too with Vic.
I really liked that one a lot.
Vic Leafers, that was really good.
Just the way the class was set up and but
it was awesome. Those are the types where I think I think that's the good thing about universities. You get that opportunity to trade ideas. Like we had literally an hour and a half block where we like everyone had read the same paper. We were going to sit down and we were going to discuss this paper from start to finish and around it as well, right? And it's just like I think those are the things that allow you the mental space to like think around problems. You know what I mean?
And you get so many ideas from everyone else's perspectives.
Yeah.
Like you just have yours, and then in this big circle of thinking, you get everyone else's, and it's amazing.
Yeah, there's tons of things that like, I remember one time actually Colin was on the show. Colin Pranish was on a little while ago, but I remember when we were all sitting around and in advanced silv, you probably remember this too, and we were talking about larch. And then Colin said something about like, well, we don't really use larch for anything, right? And him and Brittany had like a little bit of spat, and Brittany just like chewed his head off about larch and stuff, right? And I was like, ooh, I didn't know any of this about larch. I thought what Colin thought. Wow, this is interesting. I'm learning a lot. Yeah. It's really intense.
She's a very strong girl.
She knew her shit, and she was definitely wanted to let people know, which is awesome. Yeah, we need that, right? It was cool, but that's what I mean is that those kind of, I think those open forums, instead of just sitting down at a desk and being told what it is, right? You just kind of you take notes and you memorize and you try to understand, but it doesn't really sink in. But when you sit down and you have a conversation with somebody.
I think it sinks in more.
Hugely more. Like way, way better. Absolutely.
Makes you grow as a person more, and it's so much more beneficial than what you were just describing.
Yeah, it makes you, like I said, makes you think around the problem rather than just taking the direct approach, right? It makes you think of different options. And that was another big thing Bev was saying. She said that's what she found that university brought to her. She said tech gave her all the practical skills and it made her really want to do forestry, and she got lots of cool experiences and she learned lots and learned a lot that you would never learn in university. It's totally different. But she said the difference was when you got into university, it really taught you to to think about those issues. She said that she was getting answers about stuff that she knew, but didn't understand why until she was told in university, right? And I think that it's just, it definitely teaches you how to think around stuff and be unique in your critical thinking, right? So no, it's awesome. That's it. Thanks for coming on.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. If anybody wants to reach out, they can email me at yourforestpodcast@gmail.com, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And I also you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just me, Matthew Kristoff. And actually, there is a page, but nobody's really following it because I haven't really taken it too seriously, unfortunately, but I'll get there. And thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to, if you're on iTunes and Stitcher or even Google Play, rate it, review it, and that will help me out a lot if you rate and review. Subscribe also. Those things all help me understand who's listening, how long you guys are listening, how long I should make these things, all that kind of stuff, content. It helps me out a lot if you guys rate and review. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next week with some pine beetle stuff. Thanks a lot.